I'm Charles Dennis. This is Paid to Dream, and my very special guest today is Miss Barbara Rush. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Charles.
How you doing?
Well, I'm just finishing up my breakfast.
Well, it's a pretty casual show. So
It's pretty casual. I'm a pretty casual person. Well, anyway, you got me.
I have a question I've been meaning to ask you for years. I said, I got to find out this. In the movie Shampoo, the biggest laugh in the movie is when hairdresser George, played by Warren Beatty, goes to the bank to try and get a loan to start his own shop. And the banker says to him, do you have any references? And he says, I do, Barbara Rush.
I know. At that time, I was very flattered by Warren, but he called me, and he said, would that be all right with you? And I said, well, I don't think anybody knows who does my hair. And he said, of course they do. He said, every girl tries to get your hairdo. At that time, it was kind of a popular hairdo. And George Firth, of course, who was the banker,
right.
I'd worked for him a lot on plays that he'd done. And so it was just kind of fun. I just got a kick out of it. I just thought in future years people would see it and say, because nobody even knows who Cary Grant is now. And I asked a young girl if she knew who Cary Grant was, and she said, no, who is that? And I said, oh, Barbara, you're getting so old. But they do forget.
Well,
when I was in film, I knew who everybody was, even in silent films. But anyway, in any event, that's how that happened.
Barbara, so you can have some faith in the future. My 11-year-old daughter, on her laptop, her home page is Cary Grant. She has Cary Grant in her iPhone. It's her favorite actor.
Oh, bless her heart. I did tell her I appreciate that so much.
She came home from school last year, and she said to me, Dad, Olivia doesn't know who Cary Grant is. I said, honey, you're probably the only 11-year-old in town who does know who Cary Grant is.
Who does know. It's very discouraging in a way because, of course, all the film buffs know it. And I'm amazed how many people, when I go to the film festivals, Bob Osborne just had that big one in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And for Turner Classic Movies. Anyway, I'm amazed how most of the people going to those film festivals that I've been to anyway are very young. They're just kind of film devotees. They're big fans. And I get quite a bit of fan mail still, as you can imagine, from young people.
Well, I just think I think we have Turner Classic Movies to thank for that.
We absolutely do. We have Bob Osborne to thank for that.
We have Bob Osborne and keeping the flame and people, like you say, look at the number of young kids who go to that TCM festival every year now.
Yes, and of course our great decade of film was the 40s. And they were born long after the 40s. But Bob was just the right look. He was the right man. He was the right encyclopedia. He's a walking encyclopedia. He was, and he loves film so much, and he's so articulate. He was just the right man at the right time for the right job.
Absolutely. Now, you were born in Denver. Were you raised there as well?
No, not at all. We left Denver when I was very small, and it was kind of strange. My father kind of segued between Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Casper, Wyoming, to Denver, and then back. And I was born in Denver. My brother and sister were born in Casper, and then we moved to a little city in Colorado. I think originally it had been intended to be the capital of Colorado. It's called Central City. And that was, I don't know if you've ever heard that song about the face on the ballroom floor.
Yes.
That was in a little saloon there. And they kept it in a very quaint way. I haven't been back there for a little while, but they had a rather famous opera house. And in the summertime, they have a summer theater. And I went back and did a couple of plays there, but the altitude was too high for me. Because when I was a child, I got a bit ill for a while with an awful thing. I don't even know if they have it anymore, called rheumatic fever. I think it went away like polio, but I had it. And so I couldn't live in the high altitudes, with the oxygen.
It's so funny. When I was looking at Denver about you, and I thought, I was going to ask you about that, and I thought, well, that's a dumb question. People get you, but you brought it up, that altitude must be a killer. I've never spent time there.
It is. I have a friend, Bruce Curtis, who again, is involved with film festivals and things like that. And they had one, oh God, I can't remember what mountain it was on. It wasn't in Aspen or it wasn't, but wherever, or Vale, but wherever it was very high. And I got there with my sister at the film festival, and I had to go on oxygen.
Oh my God.
I had to be on oxygen almost the entire time I was there because there was no air. It was just so high up in I call them the Alps of Colorado. But yes, it's very treacherous. Although the people there, of course, get used to it. But I'm better off at sea level.
Yeah.
So anyway, my family moved there, and I was about 8 years old when we moved from there, and I'm 7 years older than my sister, and she was just a baby then. And we moved to Central City, and then found out I couldn't handle the altitude, so we moved to Santa Barbara, California, because my mother and father had friends there, and they said, you know, this is a good place, and it's a lovely city, and it's kind of low key, and which it was. And I don't know if you know Santa Barbara, Charles.
I do very well.
Of course, it's changed a little since, you know, the 40s, but nevertheless, it's still charming, and I still love to go up there.
And you went to UC Santa Barbara.
I did.
And from there, Pasadena Playhouse.
That's right.
Now, who else was in your class at Pasadena Playhouse? Anybody else we'd know?
Oh, golly. I'm just trying to think who went on. I think I was the only one that went on to become you know, I came in at an interesting time, Charles. It was right after the war, and the GI Bill was in, and I was the only girl there in that class, that particular class.
Wow.
I think like there were about 15 young men and me. And so in a way it was fortunate. It was strange, but it was fortunate because I got to play all the lady roles. You know, so I just went from role to role to role there because working with all these boys who, incidentally, were just wonderful to me. And when I did get the head of the school, a man named Tom Brown Henry, liked my work on stage because I was always on stage because I was the only girl. And so he was, Tom Brown was a very good actor, a wonderful character actor. And so he contacted a friend of his, Milton Lewis, who was a very important talent scout at that time for Paramount. Because they were that time, you know, the way they were football players now, they have scouts to go around and find out the talent. And so Milton Lewis came over to Pasadena Playhouse and saw me work. And I went to Paramount and had a screen test, and I immediately was signed under a contract. It kind of ruined my plans, I think, because I thought that I would just go to New York, you see, and become, you know, the next great actress, the next Catherine Cornell, and it didn't work out that way. But at least I got a contract with Paramount, and I just couldn't believe that I was actually, they were going to pay me $75 a week for doing what I loved, and they put me up at the Studio Club, which was great fun. It was kind of like a sorority house. They have those in New York, too, you know, where they put, Stage Door, you know, all took place in a place like that. Anyway, so they moved me over to the Studio Club, which was a wonderful experience. The lady who was the head of the Studio Club was one of those wonderful people, and there I met quite a few people, Peggy Dow and Marilyn Monroe, and a lot of people lived there. And who went on to become very important. But
now, the building still exists, doesn't it?
I think it does, but I don't think it's a studio club anymore because there's so few contract players. They don't have that same system anymore. You know, when I got into film, Charles, we were all very protected by a huge public relations department, publicity department, and there was no such thing as a scandal. I mean, nobody cared. I mean, Lindsay Lohan would have been in great hands. You know, I mean, because none of that would have ever happened.
And God knows there were scandals, but they were covered up. No one ever knew.
Well, I don't even think there were that many scandals. I think we were under pretty tight rein. Contract players at that time, you know, we were together every day. either going to the gym or having lessons, or I went right from all my stage work at Paramount to all my stage work at the studio, except instead of being on a stage, of course, we were doing it for film. But I worked there with Aaron Spelling when he was just beginning, and Carolyn Jones, who he was married to at the time. So and Nancy Olson, who, you know, did Sunset Boulevard and that kind of thing. So it was a different experience, but anyway, I was staying at the studio club, and that was an experience in itself. The wonderful lady who was the head of it, I mean, who took care of us all, she was like the door mother, made sure that we went to the theater. She would get tickets for us, or made sure that, and transportation, and made sure that we went to the opera or anything, and it was just kind of a wonderful experience because she was very interested in our edification. And also at the studio club, they had all these rehearsal rooms where you would hear, you know, the ladies who were in the violin or piano or instruments, you know, who were very interested in getting into the symphony orchestra downtown. And it was just a kind of a wonderful experience there. And of course the boys were calling all the time on the phone, and they had a wonderful dining room, kind of a commissary dining room. And if we were going out with anybody, we could always invite these young men over. They were always happy to get a free meal. And so it was just a wonderful existence at that time, and very happy. However, I did think, oh, God, what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be in New York trying out for plays. But I didn't get to New York for a long, long time.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned Peggy Dow, and she's one of the few people who just walked away from it all before she was ever 30. She had a terrific career at Universal. And
well, she had a terrific marriage.
Well,
I visited Peggy, and in where she lived.
Is she in Texas? I thought she was...
No. She's in, I think, oh gosh, can't think of the name. It's not Memphis. It's, but it's in the South. It's Arkansas. I think it's Arkansas. Well, wherever it is, that's where her husband, who's a darling man, is very affluent, and they own that town. I mean, they just own it. The name is everywhere. And but she was Peggy Jo Varnadow. But anyway, she has a wonderful, wonderful life there, and a beautiful, almost plantation-like home. You know, I think I said something called, I started calling her Scarlett O'Hara. But and she has lots of children who also live on this immense property that they own, and they all have their plantation homes. They have a wonderful, wonderful life there. And as I say, her husband is just adorable. And, you know, she, you know, I think it's like Grace Kelly. You know, do I want to make another movie, or do I want to marry a prince?
She did.
And become Princess of Monaco. These are huge life decisions to make, and that's the decision they made. And I think both of them were, I guess, I knew Grace Kelly a little bit because my husband's had Warren Cowan was the head of Rogers and Cowan, right, the public relations firm, and they had quite a bit to do with the Red Cross Ball. Yes. That Grace had every year to raise money for the Red Cross. And so we would see her kind of like once a year when that was going on. And I think that she enjoyed it a lot.
Well, you made your film debut in what I would not have thought the most logical piece of casting, in The Goldbergs.
No, I actually made my film debut in a film called The First Legion.
I see that it was released. And that was the beginning of your relationship with Douglas Sirk.
Yes, exactly.
Professional relationship.
Exactly. And he was, you know, he was such a teacher, and, you know, coming from the UFA and so forth. And he was well, of course, my mother was Norwegian, so I've got a lot of Scandinavian in me. But
he was Danish.
He was absolutely a Viking. I mean, with that blonde hair that comes straight back, and he had the electric ice blue eyes and this kind of wonderful heroic face, and he was so sweet, and I enjoyed working for him so much. But anyway, he was a dear man. Yes, I did. I worked a lot for Douglas Sirk because he did so many films with the young people at Universal when I was under contract there.
Taza, son of Cochise, you were
Taza, son of Cochise. I can't tell you a picture that would have been more alien to Douglas Sirk's background than Taza, son of Cochise. Not that Rock Hudson and I and Rex Reason were all that much better, but it was very strange. All of us. I think the hardest thing about doing a film like that is that all these people come in and with their body, what they call it, the body makeup people, and they put this stuff all over you to make you look like an Indian, all over you, and it's boy, is that messy to get off the skin. And so I think when I left, we shot it in Moab, Utah, and I remember coming back to that motel or wherever when they put us at night, and just standing, just scrubbing for hours, and just to get all that makeup off. And also I think Rex Reason had blue eyes, so he had to wear those contact lenses that made his eyes brown. And it was things like that, and of course we all wore black wigs and things like that, so that was a little difficult. Oddly enough, though, the one thing I loved in Cochise was, first of all, meeting Jeff Chandler, because he replayed his role, as, the great Indian chief.
Cochise.
Cochise, exactly. And he was such a lovely man, and he was interesting. I was always trying to either talk to or listen into their conversations with people that I'd seen on the screen that I admired so much. Just to hear them talk. The First Legion had every character actor known to man in it, playing Jesuit priests. And we were
including Bill Demarest, as I remember.
Bill Demarest and Walter Hamden, and it just had them all. And of course, Charles Boyer played Charles Boyer. But he, as I say, we were all staying at the Mission Inn, and we kind of all ate together every night. I mean, they didn't separate themselves. And so it was just fascinating for me to listen to particularly the stage stories. Walter Hamden had been a great Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yes, until St. Ferrer came along. He was I remember he told us how he one night was in a hurry or something, and he simply forgot to put his nose on. He just forgot it. And he said it was such a huge, of course, he was a wonderful actor, and he said afterwards everybody stood up and applauded and carried on, and nobody realized he had not put the full nose on. Well, he had a very prominent nose as it was.
Well, not that prominent. He had a very refined nose.
Yes.
But he just thought it was such a compliment, because he says it makes you realize you can make an audience believe anything. And that's one great lesson I learned, that if you make a mistake on stage, if you do something wrong or fall down or whatever you do, if you just go right on and not pay any attention to it at all, the audience doesn't know. They just think it's part of the play. And I thought, it's just one of the great lessons you learn when you're working around people who have had this kind of vast experience on stage. And, of course, they tell so many wonderful stories. So I loved working on the First Legion. As far as the Goldbergs, Molly... Gertrude Berg was really a wonderful actress. And she was a very sweet lady. She wasn't motherly, but she was very professional.
And sounded nothing like she did as that character.
Well, she was very kind, and she realized that we were all just kind of beginners at Paramount. But anyway, I loved to hear their stories, and it was a wonderful thing just from the get-go when I got into film that I got to work with some just amazingly wonderful character actors telling their stories, and I learned a lot from that. I thought that was probably the most educating experience I had, because aside from the Playhouse where we did lots of plays and all that kind of thing, I was enabled until much later to get under the umbrella of somebody like Sandy Meisner or Stella Adler or those kind of people and teachers. I love Sandy Meisner, but Sandy Meisner came to Hollywood and taught, and so I entered his classes, and of course he was just wonderful. Because young actors, it's just this whole thing you go through of learning. And I came into the business, and looking back on it, I thought, I don't know why anybody hired me. I really don't. I had an absolute blank face as far as I'm concerned. And I had no talent whatsoever. But they kept telling me I did, and I just kept trying to learn. But I go back and see some of the really early pictures, and I think, oh dear, 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 dear. I hadn't met up with some of those people yet. But little by little, I tried to just pick the brains for everybody I worked with, and tried to watch them and tried to observe and tried to learn how it worked and what have you. And then later on, I did a lot more stage work.
What I find fascinating, Barbara, that a lot of people aren't aware of, the number of actors, yourself included, who were working at studios but continued to study. That I remember Jack Palance was studying with Michael Chekhov.
Absolutely.
Akim Tamiroff was still going to classes with Chekhov. Frederick March, I was told there was some woman, now maybe he was going to see her for other reasons, and they told Florence, but apparently there was a woman in Santa Barbara that he was studying with.
Well, that could be. I knew Frederick, and because I worked with him on...
you were his child bride in Ombre.
In Ombre. I was married to him in Ombre. I was his young trophy wife, you see, in Ombre. Yeah. But he was, again, I have rarely worked with a good actor, Charles. I worked with some kind of actors I didn't admire too much, but I didn't think they were very good actors either, so I didn't mind. But the good actors I worked with, I always found wonderful, wonderful teachers, wonderful to observe. And, of course, Frederick March was such a whimsical person. And he was singing all these silly songs that I learned from him. There once was a whale, and he was smart. He ate postcards by the cart, and grandmothers, and toothpaste, and chocolate ice cream sodas. He was just reel out these nonsensical songs, and I just loved him for it. But he was a wonderful, again, a professional man. Boy, he got so. We had a cast member who was a wonderful actor, but who had an alcohol problem, and just didn't show up. And so we were waiting around. And when he finally did show up, it wasn't the director. It wasn't the producer. It was Frederick March who marched out and said, this is enough of that. Charles, could you hold the line just 1 second?
Of course. And for those of you who came in late, I'm talking to Barbara Rush, who will be back in just a moment.
How are you, honey?
Thank God this show is as freewheeling as it is.
No, not at all. I'm just having an interview on the other line. Oh, well, was there a particular reason you called?
There you go. The private life of Barbara Rush.
I would indeed, sweetheart. We home. Oh, that's great. Okay, I'll call you back. Bye-bye. Sorry about that, Charles.
That's all right. So we had Frederick March chewing an actor out for...
Oh, really? But I tell you, in the most articulate... I mean, I always thought, my dad always thought, obscenity is the recourse of lesser minds. And I've always kind of gone along with that. I thought it was the cheap way out, obscenity. Frederick March, I think, believes in it, too. And when he lectured this person, he did it so succinctly and curtly that afterwards the victim in question said, I swear to you, I'm never going to take a drink again.
Oh, boy.
I'm just never going to do that again. He was so humiliated after this little speech that Frederick made. Anyway, but Frederick March was quite a guy.
Yeah. Going back to Douglas Sirk and of the three pictures you did, Magnificent Obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that you and Jane Wyman were a day apart with your birthdays?
I do. We talked about it, but I think once, as a matter of fact, I can't remember. I guess we didn't actually get to celebrate it together, but we talked about it. And, of course, she was such a huge star. Rock and I were, kind of apprentices at that time, but that was an opportunity to work with a real, she'd won, I think, 2 Academy Awards at that time and all of that. But, again, very, very professional. She wasn't a buddy-buddy kind of lady, but she was very professional. And I learned a lot from that, that you're on time and you know your lines and you get as much under your belt before you start the film, knowledge about the film. And because, the wonderful stars, the great stars I worked with always did that. They were very, very professional. I never worked with a great star who was temperamental or threw fits or was or difficult to work with, ever.
Well, you're fortunate. That's great.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the ones I worked with, they made it easier. They made it easy because when you worked with them, they were so natural and so good. It kind of made it easier for you to be in character.
Yeah, it helps. It really helps.
Yes, it does. Are you an actor, Charles?
I am an actor as well, yes.
Oh, well, what have I seen you in?
I don't know. It's like I ask a dentist, whose teeth have you done? I don't know. We're here to talk about you, not about me. Now, for sci-fi buffs, of course, the two.
Yes, it came from outer space, and Mr. Ray Bradbury.
And When Worlds Collide.
And When Worlds Collide, George Powell, absolutely.
Rudolph Maté and Jack Arnold.
Rudy Maté. Rudy Maté had been a wonderful cinematographer.
Yes.
That was, and then he started directing.
And Jack Arnold did some of the classics of.
Oh yes, he was such a sweet man. He never became, a famous director, but he was a very good director. I liked him a lot.
Steven Spielberg was a little boy then. If it was now,
I don't think Steven Spielberg was born then. I mean,
yes, he was.
I remember when I first met Steven Spielberg, I was, I think, in my 30s, and he was like 17.
Well, he was born in 1947, I think. So
1947. Well, I was born in 1927.
There you go.
So I guess he was born when I was about 10, right?
Yeah.
No, 20. No, I'd be 20. I was 20 in 19. He was born in 1940.
Math, Barbara.
Excuse me. He was born in 1947, right?
Yeah.
I was 20. So he would have been a baby boy.
Well, he was watching. God knows. I mean, we were, we're around the same age. We were going to see these movies when we were very little. I mean, that's the other
you knew him?
No, I've met him, but
I thought you might have known him when he was growing up.
No.
Because he evidently had a very suburbia, growing up, and that's why he was able to, I think, depict it so well in things like E.T.
Yes.
Bob Osborne many, many years ago said, Barbara, I have to see this picture. This is when he was in Hollywood. I have to see this picture over at Universal. Would you like to come with me? They're screening it, and I have to go today because I'm going to New York or something. Anyway, he said, sure, I'll go and see it. And he said, we don't know anything about it. It's this young Spielberg, and he's got this film, and it was nobody was able to watch them filming it, and nobody knows anything about it. So I don't know what you're going to see. So off we went. And I sat there and watched E.T. with about 20 other people in the screening room over at Universal. And I just went crazy. I went out of that place. I said, that is just the most adorable. That is the most wonderful. That is the best picture I've ever seen in my whole life. And I called Warren Cowan and I said, Warren, you have to get on board with this picture somehow, some way with Rogers and Cowan because it is to die for. And then, of course, it went on to make more money than God. So, anyway, but it was
movie you discovered. It was great.
A little movie I discovered, exactly.
Can we just because it sticks out of my mind so much? You were Tony Curtis's sister Meg in the Black Shield.
I was his sister. We were Meg and Miles of Crisbydale,
who clearly grew up in two different parts of the world.
Yes, but he never ever said in his whole career, "Yonder lies me father's castle." Yeah. He never said that. It's like Charles Boyer never said, "Come with me to the Casbah." He never said that. They just made that up in the publicity. But it's true that from Tony Curtis's background, he had no thoughts or experience of being a knight in armor on a horse.
And somewhere around that time, and I wish to God, I don't know if there's a kinescope or not, because I'd love to see it, you did Shadow of a Doubt, and you played Charlie, and Frank Lovejoy played Uncle Charlie.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I wish I could see that.
Are you sure? I think that, wasn't it? Oh, no, you're right. That was Frank Lovejoy. I get he and Joseph Cotton sometimes mixed up in the things I've done. But I did play Charlie, and, yes, in Shadow of a Doubt. Yeah, that's a wonderful script.
It really is, because I have a recording somewhere of Cary Grant playing Uncle Charlie and Betsy Drake playing...
Oh, really? Oh, that would be interesting.
Oh,
you know what I just did down here? They have a group of actors down here living in this Laguna Woods village that I live in down here. I live in a wonderful place, Charles. It is just unique. I don't think there's anything like it in the world, but it's a group of senior citizens. You have to be over 55 to live here. And it's just many thousands of acres, I think, of park and golf course and tennis courts and swimming pools and what have you. But they have this group of retired actors, and they call themselves the Old Pros. And we just did 3 radio shows from the 40s. And I did Sorry Wrong Number.
Now, can we hear these things?
Well, no, you can come down and see them when we do them if you'd like to be invited. But we have a great big theater, big auditorium. It seats about 900 people. But in any event, I just did Sorry Wrong Number, and I thought, isn't that interesting? I never thought in this world I'd do Sorry Wrong Number, although I knew Agnes Moorehead, who had done it first, quite well, and then afterwards I think Barbara Stanwyck made it into a film.
But it's a great script. Lucille what's her name? Lucille Fletcher.
Louise Fletcher?
Lucille Fletcher. She wrote it, didn't she?
Oh, I think you're right. I think she did. I can't remember who wrote it.
Yeah.
And I wish I had the script in front of me, but I don't. But it's a very good script. And so they're going to do some more. They did, at that particular evening, because each show was a half an hour, they did Easy Aces and Richard Diamond, Private Detective.
Oh, boy.
So it's great fun.
That's terrific. Can we talk about Bigger Than Life?
Oh, yes, Bigger Than Life.
I do work for a company called the Criterion Collection, and they just released this in the past year or so on Blu-ray, and it is so stunning, this version. What an incredible film it is. It's so far ahead of its time.
Well, it was because, James had read this story, the true story, I think was in the New Yorker magazine, of what had happened to this man. And then James was the engine behind that whole thing. He got, what's his name to direct it? Nick Ray, yeah. And, Nick Ray was very hot at that time. He'd done Rebel Without a Cause and so forth. Interesting man, interesting director. And of course he got Walter Matthau, who I'd worked with in New York. And it was a very taut film. I think my only problem with the film was the way they had written it, as the wife as being particularly stupid. I mean, she just didn't catch on to the fact that her husband was going wacko. And so they brought in, and I said, can we make her just a little brighter? a little more able to detect. I mean, she's lived with this man for a long time, and she seems to be so unable to grasp the situation and do anything about it. And so they brought in Clifford Odets. And so he did a lot of the scenes at the end of the film when I finally do become a little stronger.
It's amazing. The number of the poor Clifford Odets that had been shunted off to the, on Sweet Smell of Success. They had him sitting there in a truck in the middle of the night banging out dialogue.
Doing dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes, they would. And they did it because they loved to write.
Yeah.
When you think of all those, I don't think he was blacklisted, but as I remember, but he certainly knew so many of those.
He was reverse blacklisted. All the liberals blacklisted him.
Well, whatever. I do know that he and a lot of the blacklisted writers who were so wonderful, just they paid them under the table. They just, to make a living. It was just such it was such a corrupt time for the Congress, and certainly for creative. There are really great writers in Hollywood, but because I know Clifford came in just as a favor to Nick Ray and to James Mason.
But it made a difference. I mean, it
did. It certainly made a difference for me because it gave me so much strength at the end of the film. At Bob Osborne's Film Festival, they played your Blu-ray, and people just loved it.
Yeah.
And of course Bob talked to me about it afterwards, and we talked an awful lot about Nick Ray.
And the Young Lions, which you are the link between the two sides of the war.
I am the only lady in the film, and there are many, many gorgeous ladies in the film. But I'm the one that links them together, yes.
Exactly. We start off, and that's wonderful.
I start off with Marlon.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I think I did start off in that skiing scene with Marlon and the ski chalet. And then Dean. Yeah. And then in Dean's apartment in New York, I meet Montgomery Clift.
Oh, I'd forgotten that. Absolutely right. Right. Mm-hmm. So you're the one with all of them. What are your memories of that? Anything that sticks out in your mind about that?
Oh, yes. That was such an interesting film because working with Brando, who I had known before the film, but being with him in Paris, and a friend of his, Sam Gilman, who I knew very well, and, Marlon used to like to take us to all these rather erotic places, just because, Marlon was a student of behavior. He wanted to know how people behaved. He would watch these holy rollers on television, these evangelists, people like Amy Semple McPherson, and just observe them very closely. He thought they were very interesting people. And in Paris, he would go to all kinds of interesting places and drag Sam and me with them and say, gosh, let's talk to this lady, why she's doing what she's doing, and, why is this guy doing what he's doing, and so forth. And so he never engaged in any of that, by the way. He just wanted to know what these people were all about, where they came from, why they behaved the way they did. And so Marlon, again, was kind of like an acting teacher. One of the more interesting things about Marlon, he knew Molly Clift very well. They had roomed together when they were acting in New York, when they were very young. And in the meantime, Molly Clift had this terrible automobile accident, and he was very, very ill. And it was physically difficult for him to even walk. And Dean Martin became his champion, and he would carry him around in his arms, like a doll, because I think at that time he only weighed about 125 pounds or 100 pounds. And anyway, so Dean would scoop him up and run him around and what have you. But Marlon would insist on doing at least minimum 50 takes of any given scene. And we had to go along with it because he was very powerful. And he had no connection with the director of the picture particularly. So he would just want to do it over and over and over again, the scene. I used to forget what I was talking about when I was working with him because we did the scene so many times. Monty Clift was just the opposite. He really had only one take in him. So he would stand up to do the scene and swim into focus. And I can't tell you how powerful he was, how vulnerable he was. I don't think anybody ever played vulnerability like Monty Clift.
No.
And that was the take. That was the take. But I remember he looked at me and he said, Barbara, I can tell what you're trying to do. You're trying to get information about Dean Martin, but you're doing it kind of on the sly. You're trying to get me to talk to you about it, and that's obvious. And if it's obvious to me, it's obvious to the audience. And I don't think we want the audience to know about that. And I said, you are absolutely right. I said, I really appreciate your telling me that. And we did the scene. Well, anyway, Hope Lang afterwards came up to me and she said, oh, God, Barbara, I wish I could do what you do. You are so subtle. You know, you really know how to, just focus in on a scene. And I said, that wasn't me, Hope. That was Monty Clift. He was really helping me. But, so it was interesting working with those two actors. And as far as Dean went, boy, he was just... Did you know Dean Martin at all, Charles?
No, I knew his daughter, Gail.
Gail. I love Gail. Well, Dean Martin was one of the easiest, the most easygoing, and he always pretended to drink a lot. I never saw him drunk, but maybe he did. But he would just say, honey, tell me how you want me to do it, and I'll just do anything you want. He was just so easy, and he was just so carefree. He thought everybody in the world was more talented than he was. And I kept saying, Dean, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have your music in my head, the way you sing a song. I said, the way you sing a song, you and Sinatra, I gave them both credit. I said, the way you sing Cole Porter or any of the things you sing, like Volare, I said, that's the way I will always hear it in my head, not any other version. But anyway, he was just adorable. So I had an interesting time on the film. Some of the concentration camp stuff was a little difficult, but being in Paris was great because I had never been in Paris before, and Marlon showed me as having me a very interesting side of Paris that I don't think I would ever have seen, and certainly haven't seen since. But it was an interesting experience.
And you were on a roll with all these leading men back then. The young Philadelphians came right after.
I'd known Paul, of course, Paul and Joanne before because we'd worked on, that thing from Marty Red over at Fox, the one about all the people, the young people in the housing.
No down payment.
No down payment. So I knew them, and Paul was a client of Warren Cowan's. So, but anyway, I knew them both. But and he Paul had to work off a contract obligation. He had signed to do something like the Grail or the Golden Cup or
the Silver Chalice.
The Silver Chalice, something like that. And he hated that picture. He really hated it. And he wanted to get out of his obligation to Warner Brothers. And one was to do The Young Philadelphians. And I'm not so sure that he was all that thrilled about the script. I think Joanne loved Paul doing parts like he did in Young Philadelphians because he was romantic.
Yeah.
And he wore a tuxedo. If there's anything Joanne Woodward loved, it was Paul Newman in a tuxedo. And so she loved him to look like that. Anyway, he went into it, and I went into it. But I, with Paul, was not, I was rather in awe of people like Charles Boyer or James Mason. But I wasn't with Paul because I knew him.
Yeah, he was just
Paul. And so he was Paul, exactly. And Brian Keith I thought was so wonderful in it. And we had a lot
Brian
of, again, the best thing that happened in that film, I got to meet Billy Burke.
Yeah.
And she and I would just go off in the corner and sit and talk. And so I just loved her. She was so cute, and she was so cute in the scenes with Paul. And I thought it was a wonderful picture because it told a story of a young boy from the time he was born, you know, till the time you assume he's well up into his 30s or 40s.
It was like an old-style Warner Brothers movie. You know, it was that thing that they did so well back in the 30s and 40s.
Exactly. It was a very good picture, very well directed. And I thought it was a wonderful love story, a wonderful romance. And Robert Vaughn was so good in it. He was nominated for an Academy Award for that film.
Yeah, he was.
As I said, when we were doing it, I don't think Paul was all that crazy about it. And you know how they bring in writers? Well, you know, like Clifford Odets or something. He brought in his friend Stuart Stern to kind of spice up the dialogue a little bit. But I thought it turned out to be a very good picture.
Very, very. Whenever it comes on, suddenly I'm hooked. I'm watching it again.
Well, you have no idea how popular it is. Yeah. That's one of the most asked-for pictures on Turner Classic Movies.
And I think it's one of Frank Conroy's last performances, talking about great character actors.
Oh, that's right. A wonderful character actor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And also, the man who played my father.
John Williams.
John Williams, yeah. Was he wonderful? John Williams, I don't know how he had the time to make all the films that he did.
He had a bicycle.
I mean, he was in every single film that was ever made. Anybody need a father? Classy father? Anybody need a classy detective? Okay, I mean, he just did endless. He must have done 2,000 films.
And then came Richard Burton.
Oh yes, Richard.
Bramblebush.
Well, I always said about Richard, he loved females so much. He didn't care whether it was a turkey, a rabbit, a dog, a script girl, his fellow actresses, whatever it was. If they were female, he loved them.
Yeah. I'm not going to protest. I've heard these stories. We all know.
No. He was a great raconteur.
Yes.
The two great raconteurs I worked with, by the way, were David Niven.
Oh yes.
David Niven could really tell wonderful stories, and Richard Burton would go on and on and on and quote Shakespeare endlessly. And I said, can't you talk in just regular English? Does it have to be Shakespeare? And he'd say, but he said it all.
Yes. He
said it all. He said, it's just there for me to take whenever I need it.
And he was a Welshman. He couldn't help it. You know, they're given to poetry. Oh, how amazing.
Yeah.
And then there was Kirk Douglas.
Kirk again. I knew him well before I worked with him, and that was just a kindness to me. I don't know who was supposed to do that part, but something. Anyway, they put me into it, and he defended me on that film because I think there were some situations where they were going to. Do you remember the film at all, Charles?
I do. I saw it recently.
Well, do you remember the rape scene? I mean, where Walter Matthau comes in.
Walter finally cracks up, and
yeah. Well, the thing is, Kim Novak wanted to do that scene. She wanted him to do that with her instead of me, and so you know, I had no say in anything, but Kirk Douglas said, absolutely not. It has to be with Barbara, otherwise Kim Novak just becomes somebody who sleeps around the town. You know, with everybody raping her, attacking her, or having an affair with her or something. She has to be kept pristine to have the affair with Kirk Douglas. You understand?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I got to do the scene with Walter Matthau.
It's a wonderfully creepy scene. I mean,
it's very threatening.
Yeah.
And my character is so. First of all, she's so drained because she knows something's going wrong with her husband, and she doesn't know what it is. You know, the betrayed wife. But also, then she knows what it is. She knows that. And I love when she says, "Why would he think that he could do this to me?" And of course, because he thinks you're off with somebody else. I mean, she put that together in the scene, which I thought was kind of good. But that was an interesting film. But Kirk Douglas was really my champion in that film. I mean, if I came out, and I think I did come off pretty well in that, as the sympathetic wife.
It's also Ernie Kovac's only serious role on screen.
That's right. That's right. He was. Oh, I loved Ernie Kovac. So that wonderful man.
Yeah.
And I felt so badly when he just got drunk and cracked his car up. Oh, that was such a tragedy.
And not far from where Monty Clift cracked the car up.
Oh no, quite a ways from that.
Was it?
No, that was on a hill down. You know.
I
think he was at the Selznicks. If not the Selznicks, he was at Elizabeth Taylor's. I know one way or the other was connected with Elizabeth, and I never figured out.
I think.
But way up above, you know, it was way up above on the hills. It wasn't down. I think
Ernie Kovac got killed on the flats.
Oh yeah!
Oh my God! I always thought he was.
He had just left Wilshire. He had just left. Billy Wilder lived at those apartment buildings. You know, we call it the jungle, the whatever jungle. You know, on Wilshire Boulevard with all those high rises. And he had just left that. And I think he cracked into something on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Oh, how awful!
I think. It's a long time ago, Charles. Don't quote me on any of this because I'm almost 85 and I don't remember everything.
You're doing great, Barbara.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
I came across this photograph, obviously a publicity picture of you at home with your Frank Sinatra records, which brings us right into Come Blow Your Horn.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, I think they had that picture cast to somebody else. And Sinatra was a friend. He was a client of Warren Cowan's, Rogers and Cowan.
Right.
And, you know, he just looked at me, and I think we were in Reno. And, you know, we'd gone up to see him opening night or something. And he said, Barbara, how would you like to do Come Blow Your Horn? And I said, I love it, naturally. But because in those days, you know, those actors like Kirk Douglas or Frank Sinatra had such power. If they wanted somebody to work with them, they got them. So I was very fortunate.
That's how we found Tony Bill.
And Tony Bill, same thing. And it worked out very well because Come Blow Your Horn was such a darling picture.
Yeah.
And I got to work with Lee Jacob.
Yep.
And Molly Pecan. And, of course, I heard all her stories from the Yiddish Theater. And, you know, I heard so much about it. I told Lee Cobb, the first play I ever saw in New York was Death of a Salesman. And it made such an effect on me. I went all by myself. And I was in New York with the studio for something. Anyway, I went to see it. And I just went over to Central Park and just kicked leaves for a long time afterwards. It had such an impact on me. And he said, it was a wonderful time. When actors get a great project and they know it, you know, you just want to hug that time. You want to wrap it up and put it in your pocket and remember it always.
Well,
and that's what they do.
One of my fond memories in the theater was a woman of independent means when I saw you do it out here.
Did you see that? Oh, Charles. Yeah.
Well, I had the costumer in a play of mine that I'd written. Garland Riddle had done your costumes.
Oh, you worked with Garland. Isn't he darling? Isn't he just a big, huge Cupid doll?
Is he still with us? I
don't know. I should check up on Garland because I really don't know. He was so heavy, and I was always worried
I got him into acting. I turned to him one day and I said, Garland, get yourself an agent and get on camera, for God's sake. You're unique. And so we had some pictures done. And I think he went under initials G something or other Riddle. Because he was such a character. Oh,
and he did my daughter's wedding. He did her wedding dress, and he was so wonderful to me. He made all my costumes, but just for when I first began it, and then also for Broadway. And he just was such a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Garland Riddle.
Yeah. Listen, let's just go because we've been talking, and I don't want to keep you all day, although I could. Robin and the Seven Hoods were back with Frank and Dean and Sammy and
well,
Peter
that's
Falk.
a whole. We'll just finish with this because it's a long story, and I'll try to cut it as fast as I can. We were doing, again, he said he wanted me to do Maid Marian, but she was evil. She was evil, but he said, with your face, nobody will mind, because he always thought I had a very sweet, innocent face. So, in any event, we were shooting and just beginning the film, had these wonderful costumes that Don Feld did, and we were shooting at the oldest cemetery in Los Angeles, the Rosedale Cemetery. And we were shooting the funeral of Edward G. Robinson, who was my father, and he had just been killed in a gang thing. And he was the godfather. And Frank was one of his gang. Anyway, we were all burying Edward G. Robinson, but Frank and the others, they knew, of course, because he was their godfather. They didn't know anything about my existence, that I was his daughter. So up drives this very fancy period Rolls-Royce, antique Rolls-Royce, and out I get, without looking to the right nor left, and in all my elegance, and place a rose on the coffin, get back in the Rolls-Royce to drive off, you see. Then Howard Koch the producer comes onto the set, gets out of the car and says, "Stop everything. President Kennedy has just been shot." And Frank Sinatra, of course, was very close to President Kennedy. But, and so was Warren Count, incidentally. Anyway, he'd just been shot. And everything stopped cold. And Frank retired to his dressing room. And we didn't shoot the film for about, I guess a week. We all went home. And then we were going to start shooting again. And I had this wonderful kind of song dance number that I had rehearsed with Frank. Oh, Charles, I had such high hopes for it. I thought it would be like Grace Kelly with Bing Crosby singing, I give to you and you give to me, true love, true love. I thought, and I will make a fortune like she did, because we will have a recording of this. And it was called I Like to Lead When I Dance. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful song that Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen wrote. They thought it was the closest they ever got to Cole Porter. Anyway, and we rehearsed it, and I had this beautiful dress. And in any event, they came running out to me before I even got out of my car that morning and said, "Don't say anything. They've scratched the scene. They're not going to do the scene."
Did you pre-record the song?
But, oh, yeah, the whole thing.
So it exists somewhere.
Oh, yes, it does. And they used it in the background, but not with my voice.
Oh, no.
Just the music. And but in any event, Frank's son had been kidnapped.
Yes.
Up at Lake Tahoe. And so somebody had grabbed young Frank. And so, again, the set closed. Oh. And we all went home. But then Frank literally said, "I can't work anymore. I just can't work anymore on this film." And he said, "We'll just close it up as fast as we can." So he tore up really the rest of the script, and we tore up my only claim to do a musical, and finally, they found young Frank. These stupid amateur people took him. I don't know what they were thinking of. And but Frank was, as naturally as you or I would be, was beside himself. He was just so frantic, and Kennedy had just been assassinated. So that was, if there was ever a film that could have been Singing in the Rain.
And didn't Gene Kelly start off directing it?
The music was that good. But it was just torn to bits because we just couldn't really finish it.
Wasn't Gene Kelly the original director?
No.
No, never?
It was
it was Gordon Douglas, I think.
Gordon Douglas, that's right. That's Gordon Douglas. No. But it would have been, I think it would have been right up there with Singing in the Rain. It had wonderful musical numbers that were never done. Luckily, they had already done Chicago. And, of course, that became such a big hit. And also...
Style is a great number.
What?
Style, the number they do with Bing
Crosby. Style, you got Style. And there's another one that Bing Crosby sings with the children. I can't remember what it is.
Don't be a do-batter.
Yeah, do better. Yeah, but anyway, Sammy had a good one, Bing had a good one, and Frank had a good one. I don't think Dean did. I don't think Dean was able to get his songs across in that film. But whatever, however it ended up, your friend that you're talking to here never became the next Barbra Streisand. It just did not happen for her. Not that I could really ever sing anyway, but it was a lovely little duet with Frank, and I'm just sorry I didn't get to do it.
Well,
but that was the story of Robin and the Seven Hoods.
Wow. Well, my new friend Barbara Rush, I'm going to have to come back to and do part 2 because it's just been great. I just love talking.
Oh, thank you, Charles. I could go on forever because, you know, I've had a very, very long career. And because of Warren Callan, when I was married to him, I met so many other people. I mean, with Danny Kaye, we toured the world with his orchestras, and so, you know, he was always leading symphony orchestras. And we went to Buckingham Palace, and we visited every crown head of Europe, not because of me, not because of Warren, but because of Danny Kaye. But I got to meet so many people, and that was interesting.
You've had a good time.
I've had a good time. I've been so lucky, Charles, I cannot tell you. You're talking to the luckiest lady in the world. I have wonderful children, I have a wonderful family, and wonderful friends, and now I have you.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
You're so welcome, dear. I hope it all turns out well for you.
I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.